Welcome in, gents. This is episode 4 of the Altitude Problems podcast. I'm your co-host, Big Country, along with my partner, PV. Got some sports to update us on PV this week. Obviously, we got a little bit of Broncos, a little bit of Nuggets. Big week for the Avs, and some big talking just NBA in general. But how are you doing tonight?
Yeah, I'm doing good. A lot of big things going on this week. As you know, the Avs move on to the next round. Really exciting for all of us to see, and then a lot of action going on in the NBA playoffs that we can break down too. So, and then a schedule release, of course. So, can go over a lot of that. So, it'll be a nice episode for today.
Yeah, let's just get straight into some boring shit that we don't really need to talk too in depth about. Because it doesn't really pertain to Denver sports. But we saw Aaron Ray win the PGA Championship over the weekend, two-gloving himself. Iron covers, kind of proving that all the myths are not true. But also didn't get a chance to see Jordan Spieth complete his career Grand Slam, and then we also saw Scotty not really have that Scotty type of round. So we'll see if he comes back from a little setback. But I mean, he's the best golfer in the world, so we'll look forward to see him trying to get his career Grand Slam at the U.S. Open later this year. But that's pretty much all the boring shit I got. You got anything for me?
Not much, I don't know much about hockey, so I don't have much input on there. Or not hockey, sorry, about baseball, so I don't have much input on that. But oh my gosh, I keep
Golf.
You knew what I meant.
Sure.
So I'm ready to move on to the Broncos if you are.
Yeah, let's get right into the Broncos. We saw the full schedule released. Tell me a couple of the matchups that you're kind of like looking at, and you're kind of like, hey, this is where like the big games, maybe some games that you're looking to go to.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, looking at the schedule, I was a little more worried because a couple weeks ago we mentioned the fact that we were supposedly the 11th easiest schedule. But looking at the schedule, it's the front end of the schedule and the back end of the schedule are going to be tough. I mean, our first 6 weeks of matchups, I think, are all competitive and I think all losable, especially if you see Patrick Mahomes in that first game. I think they're all going to be potentially close games. We have tough matchups. You have the Rams, you have Seattle. Both teams went to the NFC Championship last year. You have Jacksonville, who absolutely stomped on us in our matchup last year as well. San Francisco is always a good team every year, no matter what. And the Chargers, I feel like every year we always split our matchups with them. Typically, we go 1-1, and they're always close games. So I think all 6 of those first games are going to be pretty tough games to kind of go into. Obviously, it kind of lightens up a little bit later on because we get a lot of easier matchups like Arizona, like Carolina, like Pittsburgh, Miami, Las Vegas. But then you get to the back end of the schedule and all of a sudden you're facing Buffalo, New England, and the Chargers to end the year. So I think it's going to be really important for us to start the year strong and really get some big wins because I think even with regardless of getting a winner or a loss, I think we need to at least stay competitive and prove that we can hang in there with some of these bigger teams.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you're going to be facing a lot of good teams. Obviously, you're going to be facing those 2 divisions in each conference, but the Broncos did finish first in their division, so they're going to face every first division team or 3 or so of them. So it's definitely going to be like tougher than last year. I mean, the Broncos you could probably say they had a little easier schedule last year, so they kind of, I wouldn't say it was a cakewalk by any means, but definitely are going to have a little tougher stretch this year. So we'll have to see what happens there. But let's just do a quick prediction for what we think is going to happen, week 1 through 17 or 18. I mean, we got the Broncos at Chiefs. That is the first Monday night of the year, I want to say, right?
Yes, first Monday game.
Not being a hater here, but I do see this as a loss.
I don't see it as a loss, mostly because even if Pat Mahomes comes back, it's not as easy to get into the whole flow of everything. So, yeah, I think there is still a lot that they're going to have to step into. I think they'll make it competitive. I do think that we pulled this one out, though, just given the fact that it's been so long that the teams had a chance to work together and they have a lot of new components within the offense and the defense. Even their defense is still really young. So a lot for them to work on, but I do think they'll manage to keep it close.
Yeah, honestly, now though, when you said Mahomes, he might not be ready. He might have Justin Fields in that game 1. Obviously that's a big factor in that game, but it kind of sways me a little bit to think that the Broncos might win this one, just because, I mean, they're going to be their chemistry is going to be a little bit better than the Chiefs probably. Mahomes might not play at all in the preseason as well, so he might not have those reps. He might be a little rusty. So I say we take Denver to keep it rolling. Start the year. How are we feeling about the Jags coming into Denver for the home opener?
This one's one that I'm nervous about, one that I think I'm pretty 50-50 on. I mean, we had a terrible showing against them last year. I think they just ran it down our faces the entire game. We couldn't stop them and then couldn't produce enough on offense to get anything going either. So I'm hoping that we see a much different outcome this year, but honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if we drop this one.
Yeah, super talented team. I kind of agree with you there. Me and Brandon, we were both in Vegas for that game, and it started out decent. It's not like you guys were down, like, like 2 scores the whole game, but they really broke it open in third and fourth.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I say L there. And then you got the Rams back to back. I mean, this is a gauntlet of 6 weeks for you guys. You get the Rams, a lot of people are going to probably think they're going to be like, up there in the NFC for Super Bowl contenders. What do you got there?
I think it's going to be another tough one. I'm not really sure where we're going to stand in this one. I think it's going to be really interesting to see even where the Rams are next year. They are obviously very talented. They have a good chemistry, but you can see kind of age catching up to some of those players a little bit. Obviously, Stafford has been great for many, many, many years, but time catches up to everyone. And then I think Kyron Williams took a slight step back last year compared to other years. I think he was still great last year. Don't get me wrong. He was still a fantastic running back, but you could definitely see that he started to slow down a little bit. So I think it'll be hard to go against them. I don't think we end up winning this one either, to be honest with you. But given that we're at home, I think we do have a shot. So I think this one, I'm going to leave this one up to you. I think we have a chance to win this one, but I do think it's going to be a tough one.
I think it's going to come down to how well the Rams defense can play.
Yeah.
Because if it gets into a shootout, you can maybe lean a little bit more to the Rams because they're probably going to have like a little smoother offense. You got Stafford, you got Puka, you got Devontae, you got the new kid from, or they didn't draft anyone, did they? No, they drafted the quarterback like idiots.
Yeah.
I mean, I could go both ways here. I'm going to lean towards just having home field advantage here for Denver. So I'm going to give them a win. I mean, it's as hard as it's going to be for Denver. It's going to be just as hard for the Rams, and
Yeah.
especially coming on the road into Denver. Denver's a very tough place to play. And I think you go into that week 4 against San Fran in their house, or, that's where it's just got another test. Once again, Niners have another test. And for me there, if you're coming off a win against the Rams, I think you go into the Niners house and potentially beat them as well.
Yeah, I agree. I feel slightly more comfortable going into that San Francisco game than I do in that Rams game. I feel like the 49ers will always be really good, but I do feel like they're missing a lot of components to be able to beat a team that has a lot of threats like us on both sides of the football. For one, I think that they don't really have a good enough wide receiver one to beat Pat Surtain or to beat to beat our secondary in general.
Not right
And
now.
then yeah, even I think their defense is going to be what's going to be our main problem. I think they're always finding really good schemes defensively. They always have the right players in the right spots. They never seem to have a bad defense in a year. So I think that's kind of where we're going to struggle is maybe getting the score up a little bit. So if we can just get a couple scores early, I think we take that game.
And a big thing to watch too is I also don't have Robert Saleh anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
They
very
still have
true.
the names on the defense, the 2 linebackers. You did get Dre Greenlaw back from Denver as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, aside from that, I don't think anything really scares me here for the Niners side. They didn't really sign anyone big. They haven't hit on anyone in the draft, it feels like, in the last 5 years. So I like that take for the win. Now, I think this is where the Broncos and Chargers probably split. They start
Yeah.
their split at least. I mean, they have for a while. I think you guys split last year. I think you guys lost in LA and then won in Denver when it was irrelevant, correct?
I believe you may be right.
I think it was that
I
week
know
18
sometimes
game.
it's the other way around. Sometimes we split it reverse to where we actually went in their house and they beat us here.
I mean, to be honest with you, I could see the Chargers having a very good season. I mean, the AFC West is going to be a tough division to be in, but I say the Chargers take this one in week 5.
I think the problem with the Chargers is they're always supposed to be good on paper. Every year, every year to me, they've always looked like they're supposed to be a really good team, and for whatever reason, they just can't figure it out. So, I mean, if they can figure it out, then yeah, they're going to be a problem. But it's until they figure it out that's gonna, be a possibility.
Yeah. And then I'm gonna put down a loss there, but I could see it going either way.
Yeah,
But
I think
then
with these ones,
short
they're just
week,
gonna split it 50-50 regardless. So
100
you either take a
exactly.
win or a loss here, and then take a different one next matchup, or
Yeah.
vice
Even
versa.
though that's not really a home game for them, it's still, in LA. We're still going to have to travel there, go West Coast, but it's always a tough game against the Chargers when it's both sides are, 100%. So
Yeah, definitely.
an early season should be. But then you got short week in Seattle, reigning Super Bowl champs coming into your house. I think Bronco cleans this up. They clean them up.
I'm hoping so. It's gonna be tough again. They're scary on both sides of the football, they can score big and they can lock you down, but then they also can they can get flustered on both sides as well. I mean, they managed to get a really good playoff run and get to the Super Bowl. But we definitely did see a few times last year where either their offense was really weak in a game for whatever reason, or all of a sudden their defense did get exposed. So I'm hoping that we can figure out what those gaps were in that team and kind of take that win that week at home as well on a short week.
Yeah, I mean, kind of again, like kind of what comes out is like it's gonna be about defense. Seattle had a very good defense last year. Do they kind of get figured out in the first 6 weeks, or do they kind of remain status quo? Does the offense stay the same? Not they lost their OC. Does Sam Darnold stay the same? I'm gonna stick with the team that didn't really move that much. And got something to prove as well. But then I think this is an easy choice for Week 7. Do we even talk about the
Yeah.
Cardinals?
Yeah, I mean, I think we take down Arizona, they got some young talent, I'll give them that, but I don't think they're there yet this year, no. It's gonna
Yeah,
be another couple years of development.
I don't care what Walter Nolan says. That team is not different.
No, yeah, they may be in the future. I do think they have some young studs, but I don't think that they're there. They're gonna be there for another couple years.
Yeah. Yeah. Week 8, I mean, we kind of predicted that the Chiefs wouldn't get the first matchup of this, but is this like another situation where we might get a split, or do you see Denver going 2-0?
I think this is where it gets interesting because if Patrick Mahomes is gonna be there week 1 and when we're in their house, I think that's when we're most likely to lose it. It's been, I think, now back-to-back years that we've won at home against the Chiefs. Obviously, 2 years ago, it was versus a backup quarterback, but regardless, I still think that we have definitely improved at home against the Chiefs, and so I do think we should theoretically be able to take them down, but the Chiefs matchups in particular, I think, are 2 of them that are in the air because we just don't know what the Chiefs are gonna look like this year, like, they didn't look good last year, so they theoretically should be very, very winnable games, but it's the Chiefs and, they made a lot of moves, so you just never know with them this year. So I think it's possible that we split. Which one we lose and which one we win, I'm not quite sure. But I do think it's going to be one to kind of look out for this year because we really have no idea what the Chiefs are going to look like.
Yeah, and this is also just a very pivotal game for you guys. You're middle of the season. You're going to be coming in off 2 straight wins potentially. Kind of like setting the tone for the back nine essentially.
Yeah,
So Denver's going to be rocking for that game. It was rocking last year. It's the biggest. It's the biggest game of the season for you guys. I mean, it's almost like a must-win game. So I'm going to give it to you guys.
I
So,
like it.
but Week 9, that is going to be a very tough game to go to. You know why? East Coast, 11 a.m. is going to be hell for us.
I think the
Those
thing about
early
that one
morning
is
games, man.
I think Carolina's gonna surprise a lot of people this year, honestly. They've been in kind of purgatory for the last few years, but I think that's kind of necessary when it comes to developing, and I do think that they gave Bryce Young the appropriate amount of time over the last couple of years to really get used to the NFL speed and get used to really playing at that level, and he has a lot of young, really good studs back there. Rico Dowdle came in, and he had a fantastic year. You have a lot of really good receivers that you both drafted and have been developing. You have Xavier Leggett. You have Teteroa McMillan, who you picked up last year. So you have a lot of really,
Come
really
on, Pat,
talented
say him.
players.
Jimmy
Jimmy
Horn.
Horn. Jimmy Horn out of Colorado. I would love to see him get some more development. He's a little
Jimmy
guy, but
Horn.
he's got some wheels and he can definitely make some crazy cuts. So I'd love to see some more out of him. We definitely saw some big plays from him last year too.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a tough game regardless. Whether it's, the Panthers and not any East Coast game from a team coming from the West Side is going to be tough in the morning. That's kind of why I have you guys predicted. It would make so much sense that the Broncos go into a team like the Panthers. They're probably, let's be honest, they're probably going to be sitting like 4-5, 5-4, something like that. And the Broncos go in and like steamroll. It's just not going to happen. Probably it's going to be weird. It's going to be wet. It's going to be really
One
annoying
of
in the
those weird
morning.
games. I could
And
definitely
that's
see it being one of those trap games for us for sure.
definitely.
Especially if we're coming off a win against Kansas. We're really high on everything. I could
That's
see
the
that
one
being a
where
trap
Vegas
game.
is just going to bone people.
Yeah. Yeah.
100%. But then you guys get back on track in Week 10, against the Raiders at home. It's a perfect
Week
get back
11
game.
after a bye, but yeah.
Week 11, yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Even better. I didn't see the breaking schedule there, but coming off a bye, maybe after a tough loss in Carolina, that's where you get right no matter.
Yeah. Yeah, you kind of break down what went wrong, you see what we might have done wrong, which obviously I'm hoping it doesn't go that way, but I wouldn't be surprised at the same time. But I do think that if anything, the Raiders are a great team to bounce back against, especially at home. So you're going to have what is technically our rivals coming up against us at home. But in terms of level, we should be able to steamroll them, especially if we're coming off of a tough loss in a bye week. So
And the NFL honestly gifted you guys a great schedule after the bye, after such a kind of like a start in your schedule that's just so tough, because that bye, you easily can go 4 now. You got the Steelers, Dolphins, and Jets. 3 of those are pretty much locks. You never know with Perk Rogers. That's all I'm going to say. I'd lean
I still
obviously
think we knock
Denver.
them down. Yeah.
I lean Denver no matter what on that, just because but it'll probably be one of those like 1-score games somehow because the Steelers defense somehow keeps you in it. I don't
Yeah, I could
understand
see
it,
their
but it's true.
defense keeping them in it. But I think that Rodgers, especially in his recent years, has struggled a lot with pressure, and that's what we're going to be bringing. So I do think that's going to be one of our things. Yeah, I do think in his early years, it was what he did really good with, but I feel like recently it's been a big struggle of his because his targets are just. I think it's more so his communication with his receivers. They're not where he wants them to be at the time that they're supposed to be, especially really quickly. So whenever he's planning some sort of quick throw because he's getting that pressure in his face, I feel like for whatever reason, he just hasn't found that receiver that he can communicate with to get to that spot.
Yeah,
That's
and
why he
it's
loved
also like
Devontae so much.
it's not like he's like throwing picks either. He just throws it into the dirt.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
because he's like, well, I'm not going to sacrifice the game because my receiver doesn't know how to run a route. Essentially, that's
Yeah.
essentially in
Yeah.
his mind is what he's saying. I agree there. I think Denver takes that one, not easily, but they get it done. Then you go at home against the Dolphins. That's a win. Don't even need to think about it. They're fucking scrubs. Same with the Jets. They're scrubs. And then I didn't even realize they played the Raiders again.
Vegas
So that's
again.
probably 5 in a row.
Yeah.
Huge going into the back end of the schedule because then you have 3 gauntlets of a team. You got the Bills, Pats, and Chargers. You're lucky to get out of there probably with 2 wins, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, I
I
mean,
think
we
the
took
Bills,
down the Bills last year
yeah,
in the playoffs, so we know what they're like, and we know we can beat them, but, I mean, one of the crazier things about that last game is it was an offensive shootout. It was definitely something that both of our defenses were kinda struggling on both sides, and
the
it was just
defense
who
won it.
scored more and and then who made the big play at the end of the game, and eventually in overtime, like you said, we had that one big pick at the end of the game to just switch the momentum, and so I think both that game and the game against the Chargers at home, depending on whether or not it's actually gonna be important, both of those games have potential to be a similar type of game. And that
I
Buffalo
see
game's
you
actually
guys.
Christmas, I just realized.
Yeah, I mean Haley Steinfeld wants an early present, buddy. That's all we got to remember. I kind of see the Bills getting their get back. They're notoriously known for getting their get back in the regular season rather than the playoffs, because they don't win big
Yeah,
games.
that's true.
The Bills might be rolling in there and they might need a win because for whatever reason they're 8-7 heading
Yeah.
into week 16.
Yeah, that's true.
So
There's a lot of late season implications that are definitely gonna apply.
I could see 2 wins in these last 3. I can't see 3. I just can't. 3 quality teams. I think they lose against the Bills, then beat the Pats and Chargers. Pats, it's going to be a tough game. Might get flexed into a Sunday Night Football, but I don't think the Pats will be that good this year, to be honest with you. I think they're going to come off their high.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we saw them kind of towards the end of the season even get picked off or picked on a little bit for what they were lacking in. I think those playoffs games, they got by us. I think with only 10 points in that playoff game, you don't usually win a playoff game doing that. So then they went into Seattle and just got absolutely not into Seattle, but they went on to play Seattle and got absolutely destroyed. And so I do think that the last couple of games, both mostly on defense against their offense, has kind of shown that there is a weak point that they have that is very much able to be exploited. So we'll see if they're able to fix that and adapt to whatever the defenses are adjusting to be able to beat them, or if they continue on their streak that they had.
Yeah. So that puts us Denver at 13-4.
Pretty solid. I think it is a little optimistic. I think they're going to be somewhere between 10 and 13 wins realistically. I think at the worst we have 10 wins. I don't think we'll be worse than 10 wins. And if we do, I think I'd consider the season a disappointment, especially given how well we played last year. So I do think that 13-4 is optimistic. I think most realistically, probably somewhere around 11 to 12 wins would be more realistic.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. So we're taking the over in the 9.5 wins. That's
Yeah,
what you're saying.
absolutely. Yeah, I
Okay.
would.
Yeah. Not gambling advice though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of wraps up on like the Broncos because there's nothing like big heading into the headlines outside of the the schedule release and everyone making their predictions for how their team's going to go 17-0. But yeah, but let's roll into some Rockies. They're currently winning right now, I believe 6-2. They gave up a run
Yeah, last I checked.
in the fifth inning, but obviously winning 7-3 in top of the
7-3.
seventh. That's where we're recording this. And seeing some positive things on the offense this week. You just can't get those. You can't be. They haven't been able to stack those wins, unfortunately. So that sucks. But yeah,
No, and like you mentioned last week, it's the pitching, and that's the problem. We just can't find the consistency in it. So we're only winning like every other game because every other game we actually have good pitching. That's maybe every other game we have good pitching. And so I think that's obviously just going to continue to be an issue. It's always been the Colorado issue that we have lingering. So if we can ever find any consistency within our pitching, get a couple of good starters and a good rotation going, I think we can definitely be very clear for 70 wins. But until then, we really need to figure out the consistency with the pitching.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, but I mean, at least we got some slight good news. We saw our first ever Rockies position player to be born in Colorado to play for his hometown
Woo!
team. Even though he was not technically raised here, he was born here. We'll still count it. Sterling
We are
Thompson
counting
makes
it.
his debut. He got his first hit tonight as well, like you said, before we got on for the pod. But congrats to him and his family. But on the sad note, Chase Dolander, right forearm tightness, not good. Already
No,
on the
yeah.
15-day IL. That's usually the sign for Tommy John, unfortunately. So hopefully we hear some good news in the next few weeks. But I'm not too optimistic when it comes to Tommy John, unfortunately. And it's just sad because he was having such a promising season.
Yeah, and especially given that we have pitching issues, it would have been nice to have Chase Stolander. He wasn't always playing the greatest, but he definitely had a lot of outings that he was at least getting us some wins. So he would have been someone we would have loved to keep in the rotation. Like you said, we're hoping for the best, but it's not looking too good on right now, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah, we love you, little doe to the moon. But we're also seeing Ezekiel Tovar kind of pick up. He struggled a lot in the early season, and I feel like as we're warming up, he's grinding through these at bats. Man, he's seen the ball a lot better recently. His last 5 games, he's batting 267. Over the season, he's hitting 200. So definitely starting to turn the corner. And then Mickey Moniak, we talked about him a little bit last week. What's kind of concerning to me is his road home splits. He looks like the Barry Bonds of Coors Field right now. But on the road, he's kind of just barely above average. And I feel like that might be a little concerning, when it comes to like potentially trading him because you might not get the greatest value for him because he's only, just a barely above average player on the road, which is everywhere else. So have to see when that time comes, might be seeing moves here in the next month or two. But obviously hoping for the best for our Rockies. But yeah. Yeah. You got anything to add on them?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be a shame to get rid of Mickey. I think it's been a lot of fun watching him, but, business is business. The Rockies like money, so hopefully we can at least enjoy the last bit of Mickey if he does end up leaving.
Yeah, and it's not like Mickey's, very expensive either. He still has team control. It's really just does he align with our interests in a long term aspect, especially considering, since the Rockies are still in the rebuild, they're competitive, but they're not there, obviously. So like you gotta think in the future, hey, is he can be a part of the team in 2 years if he's 27 years old right now? Maybe not. Have these young guys that are starting to come up and to get developed a little, so we'll see. But yeah, let's switch bases, get a little less depressing. Feels like the Rockies are always a little depressing when we talk about them. Then they start winning. But let's talk about a little NBA. Not too much to talk about for the Nuggets, obviously. I mean, I saw some stuff saying, "Hey, we're not going to trade Jokic no matter what." 100% agree.
Yeah, I don't see why we would. We would just set our
Like,
franchise back a decade. We've only been relevant because we have Jokic.
yeah, we're not going to pull, a Mavs trade like Luca. We're
Right.
just not doing
Yeah.
that. So we'll have to see what happens there. They didn't really have a lottery pick or anything like that either. So, they're gonna have to do a lot of different things this offseason to, manipulate the cap, manipulate how they're gonna,
Yeah.
mortgage the future and try and get the
Yeah,
best years out of Yoke.
we're stuck in a pretty tough purgatory right now. we screwed ourselves pretty badly with a lot of these contracts. Christian Brown, Zeke Naji, paying a lot of players that aren't worth the amount of money that we're paying them. And so I think that specifically has screwed us because there's not a lot of moves that we can make in free agency. And then we're playing too well, like you said, to even get a lottery pick anyway. So, hopefully we can figure something out. But right now it's definitely it's going to take a miracle.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, let's get straight into like what we think is going to happen, though. I mean, we got the Eastern Conference Finals, the Cavaliers versus the New York Knicks. Knicks are pretty big favorites right now. Don't really. I mean, I kind of understand why the rest of they're playing super well. I could see this series going at least 6 or 7.
Yeah, I think the series goes far, and I think a big part of it was what I mentioned on the last podcast was Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. I think make a huge impact on that team. And then if you watched any of Game 7, that was really apparent. Both of them dropped 20 plus, and I think just the size and the actual skill set that the both of them have make it really hard to be able to guard the both of them unless you have two really good bigs. And so I think the Knicks. I think that they are going to they do have the recipe to be able to stop them, but I still think that, like you said, they're going to keep it. I think the Cavs are going to keep it close because even without Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, if you manage to lock those guys down, you still have a backcourt in James Harden and Donovan Mitchell. And obviously, I hope that James Harden plays better than he did this last Game 7 throughout the series because I feel like in closeout games, James Harden seems to lack. But
Yep.
hopefully he can really step it up this next series because I think it's going to be really, really important for him to show up for them to be able to show out in this series.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. I think the Cavs have all the star talent in the world to go deep in this playoff run. And they played some tough teams in the East to start out the run. So Knicks are rested. Like, that's a huge, huge thing in the playoffs. So they killed everyone the past 7 games. I want to say they've won by at least 15 in each of them. So it's gonna be a little crazy to think that they don't win. But I'm gonna put money on this series going over 6 games. I don't know exactly what the line is. Let me take a peek. Speaking of Spurs Thunder, 94-92 with 2 minutes to go.
Yeah, 2 minutes to go. The Spurs, if they could take the first away game, would be a huge, huge win.
And the Spurs, like we were talking about earlier, before we got on, they beat them 3 times out of 4 during the regular season. So the fact that OKC was just as favored as much as the Knicks were over the Cavs is kind of alarming to me. Like, what the fuck do the books know that we don't? So I'd be happy to see OKC lose.
Yeah, and I think there's a big chance. I mean, Victor Wembanyama, he's unbelievable. He can shoot, he can block, he can score. He has every facet of the game that he needs. And then he's still complemented by a lot of other really good players. I mean, you still have De'Aaron Fox out there. Stephon Castle really stepped it up last game. I think he's a really, really good young player. You have Devin Vassell. You still have Julian Champagny.
Mhm.
So I think that there's a lot of Dylan Harper. There's a lot of really good young talent around there. So I do think that they have an opportunity. The only thing is the experience. OKC is going to have a really big step up on experience against these Spurs, these really, really young Spurs that have zero playoff experience together. So I think it would be really nice to see a really young team with like no experience beat a team like OKC that just was not only a winner in the NBA championship, but a juggernaut going into this year to win it again. So
My God, this game's crazy. Alex Caruso, for one, has 27 points with 7 threes. And then Champagny, right on cue, hit a 3 to take the lead by 2.
take the lead. Oof. Yeah,
So
throw
this
it on.
game is crazy. Jalen Williams just tied it up 97-97. This game is going down to the wire. I wish we could have the audio, not gonna lie, but that is a little illegal. Yeah. This series is just gonna be crazy. Oh, steal, 2-on-1,
No.
block, not blocked. Rebound, Wemby,
That was huge defense by Stephon Castle down the stretch there.
cherry picking. No, not anymore. Timeout, Spurs.
Yeah, take your
53
time.
seconds. I mean, yeah, so we'll have to see, obviously what happens, but I think, common thread here is both these series are going to be great. They're going to go the distance probably, or at least we hope. I think anyone wants these series to go the distance. I mean, these are great matchups. And, who do you think is going to take it, though, going into the
Yeah,
finals? What's our matchup?
I think this is the best matchup right now. OKC versus the Spurs, I think, is an ideal matchup for any NBA fan. I think it's going to be awesome to watch. I honestly think that the Spurs kind of take it down just because I think Wembanyama's been on an absolute terror, and I don't think he's going to be able to be stopped. I think that he's much better than Chet Holmgren. And so I think
That's
for that
that's not
reason,
a
I think
debate,
that they're
Pat.
going to take it down. Yeah, but maybe it was early on. It definitely isn't anymore. But I think for that reason, I think he's going to be able to carry them all the way. And especially if they're going to be, if they can take down this first game, which right now they're even keeping it close. Keeping it close in an away game versus OKC is huge. So I think that they'll surprise a lot of people, probably take it to 7, and I think they're going to win it.
Hey, the Nuggets took them to 7 last year. They won the first game. They stole game 1.
Yeah,
Then they
and we
Nuggets.
should have won. We should have won. We just absolutely fell apart in game 4 or in game 7 like we did this year late in the series. So,
Yeah, that and injuries.
yeah.
But yeah, let's get into like the most happy part about this segment, this series though, either way, we're going to see, the deserved champion, I feel like. No candy cake runs. I don't care what anyone says. This is not a candy cake run when you go through the West as well. And the Cavs and Knicks, battled through their way. Maybe not the Knicks, but the Cavs definitely did. Knicks, play the 76ers. 76ers can't get past second round no matter what. So, and if the Thunder get bounced by the Spurs, then we get a new champion once again, I believe, 8 years in a row, something like that. So the parity in the NBA is unmatched. We need to address that in so many other sports like
Yeah, I
baseball.
think the
But,
parity in the NBA is phenomenal. That's what makes it so much fun to watch. You really never know who's going to win every year. So,
was that a shooting foul?
yeah, it looks like they called a shooting foul on Chet Holmgren on that. Little of their own medicine for OKC there.
Yeah. But yeah, that kind of wraps up what we're going to talk about NBA wise. I'd say our bet of the week, guys, is both Eastern Conference Finals and Western Conference Final. Take the over in games for the series. Maybe parlay it, get a little plus money. I feel like that's not the worst bet.
Yeah, absolutely.
But let's get into the Avs. Don't know much about hockey. We'll talk like we do. But game 1, obviously, it's a win, right?
Obviously, as Avs fans, we're hoping for that. I think one thing that needs to be addressed is we really need to get off to a better start to these games. It's nice to see that we don't just get back on our heels and we manage to get back into the swing of things when we have such a early deficit and we're falling behind like that. And it's great to see that we can recover and not give up, but it shouldn't be happening, especially not in back-to-back games the way that it did. We won one of those 2 games, but in back-to-back games, they were just right on us early on and they were just scoring and we just couldn't do anything about it. And so I'm hoping that this time, rather than let that go on early, we kind of start off with some really good aggressive momentum the way that we had it on the back end of the game 5. And I think that if we're able to keep that aggressiveness throughout the game rather than kind of just later in the game, it should be an easy win.
Yeah, I think so. Big, things I kind of worry about is we got a couple of injuries to think about. Makar was nursing something all series long. Malinsky and Lehkonen, they didn't finish the series. I think everyone's a little optimistic they're going to be back for this round. That's definitely something to worry about when it comes to our best defensemen. Those are 3 of our best defensemen. So
yeah, and we definitely needed them in those games. It was clear we didn't have that iron wall that we typically have back there.
Yeah, and maybe that's why we had a little bit of a change in how well our goalie performance was, because there was a lot of bucks going in the net against both guys. We saw some fuck off. That's not a foul. Get the out of here.
When it's OKC, everything's a foul. Oh, it's Shea, and even more so.
Oh, yeah, it's Shea. It's a foul. Yeah, but hopefully, Avs can get it done in game 1 tomorrow night. Ball Arena. Is it tomorrow? Is it Wednesday? I think it's Wednesday. Wednesday, 6
night,
p.m., May 20th. It's going to be a great game. Same day this episode drops. So make sure to tune in and cheer loud for our Avs. And I know I'll be watching. You'll be probably watching somewhere, probably at work.
I'll be watching.
But it kind of wraps it up for what we were going to talk about today on the show. Do you have anything else to say? Maybe a fun fact for us Colorado sports fans?
Oh, man, I don't really have a fun fact for the Colorado sports fans today. I guess if you're an F1 fan, Canadian Grand Prix this weekend, so go out and watch that. F1's in a pretty cool spot right now.
Okay, let me try and think of a Colorado one then.
Well, you know what? How about this? I guess this isn't really a fun fact. We'll do a trivia question. What team drafted Champ Bailey?
The Skins?
It was the Washington Redskins. He was originally drafted to the Washington Redskins, and after the draft was traded to the Denver Broncos, where he had his illustrious career. Yeah, I think he played a couple preseason games, maybe a couple regular. He might have played a season for the Redskins even, but
Yeah.
no one knows about that because his illustrious career was with us, the Denver
Yeah.
Broncos.
Exactly. I'm trying to think of something I could say. Maybe about the Rockies. That's my domain, you know. Do you know who our starting center fielder was for our 07 team?
7. Was that Eric Young Jr.?
God, no.
Was that later in the year? I don't remember when we
that
had
was just
Eric Young.
later on. God, he was
Later
so
on.
he was such
I loved Eric Young Jr.
he was such a bum, Pat.
Oh, I was way off. He actually played like 5 years with Washington.
Come on, Pat. His number was number 7.
He was number 7. That is correct. Or no,
Well,
he was pick.
no.
Was his number 7? Oh, you're talking about the Rockies. I was like, I saw the pick. I was like, wait, what? No, yeah, I don't know. Was it that? No, Dexter Fowler was way later. I don't know. Who was our 07 center fielder?
Matsui.
Man, I actually remember that name, but barely. I think I remember hearing
Not
him
terribly
as a kid, but
like memorable, I will say. So, but he was pretty good in center field for us. Very good defensive out. That kind of wraps it up for our episode 4 of the Altitude Problems podcast. Yeah. Have a good week. Have a good day on the parlays, fellas. And we will see you next week for episode 5.
See you next week, everyone.
Peace.